Today's case is an unsolved one, and it's pretty disturbing. I will put timestamps if you want to skip over the gore, but let's go ahead and get into the case. Oakey Albert Kite Jr. was born on May 7th, 1951 in Nash County, North Carolina. He was named after his father, Oakey Albert Kite Sr. His dad was a well-known dog trainer in the area, so to distinguish himself from his father, he started going by his middle name, Al. Al was described by literally everyone who knew him as an extremely bright and friendly personality. It's pretty crazy because you see that every single person who talks about him talks about what a nice guy he was. And he was able to maintain this bright demeanor even after his mother's passing when he was a teenager. In 1976, he married a friend from high school who had a daughter from a previous relationship. Al, again, was such a nice person. He really took this daughter in as his own. And even after he ended up divorcing her mother, he maintained a good relationship with the daughter. Al began working for Stone and Webster. He worked at the Surrey nuclear plant in Richmond, Virginia, so pretty close to the southeast, where he was originally from. But later in his life, his work would take him all over the country and even all over the world. At one point, he was even working in Algeria. And in the late 90s, he ended up in California. He was working in the Bay Area, and he worked on the San Francisco Rapid Transit System, as well as the San Francisco airport. So he was working within engineering, but he was actually working as a timekeeper. So he was kind of like being a project manager for these different projects to make sure that the right number of people were working on each one and that they were going to meet their deadlines. In 1998, Al's job at Stone and Webster took him to Colorado. He was required to relocate for this job, but he was actually really excited because, as we all know, Colorado has a lot of natural offerings, and Al was an outdoorsman. So he relocated to Aurora, Colorado in 1998, and he was just absolutely overjoyed in his new city. There was so much to do outdoors, and sadly, though, he did end up getting laid off, but he did find employment a short time after. Getting laid off is a stressful event for anybody, but luckily Al did have a side income. So in Aurora, Al had bought a townhouse. And if you don't know what a townhouse is, imagine like a strip of like apartments, but you live in every single floor. Like it's just one block as opposed to each floor being a different person. So Al had this townhouse, and he realized that he spent so much time outdoors that he wasn't really using it. So he wanted to rent out the basement unit. So he would have a roommate, but also kind of be like the landlord for his roommate. And they would, share a kitchen. And I think they had separate bathrooms. He would be living on the floor above, and then the roommate would inhabit the basement area. He had a tenant for several years, but in May 2004, this person moved out, and Al was on the hunt for a new roommate. He placed advertisements seeking a roommate in local newspapers as well as online, and he also put a printed out posting inside the bulletin board area of the University of Colorado Medical Center library, and that will be important later on. So he was giving tours to people, like just making sure that he could find somebody who was interested in the place and could pay rent on time. He was really easy to get along with, so I don't think that he had very many requirements personality-wise. One day, someone reached out to Al and was very interested in the apartment. This man identified himself as Robert Cooper, and he said that he worked for Wells Fargo and was relocating from the East Coast. He said that he was staying with his sister while he looked for a place of residence, and Al decided that Robert Cooper was the right person for the apartment. On May 18th, just days before Al's death, he met with Robert Cooper to finalize the lease. During this meeting, Robert Cooper paid Al in cash for half of the month's rent because it was May 18th, so why should he pay for the full month of May if he's not moving in until later? And on top of that, he also gave him the security deposit. And as it is in most rental agreements, in exchange, Al gave Robert Cooper a key to the place. So on the tail end of this visit, Al's new girlfriend, Linda, dropped by. Al met her at the door and said that he was really excited for her to meet his new roommate because Robert Cooper was still downstairs. However, Linda had to pee, so she went to the bathroom, and she said that right after she washed and dried her hands, she walked out, but Robert Cooper was already like walking out of the apartment. Like he basically just like pushed past her, didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge her. He literally just walked out. And Linda found this to be really odd and rude, but she had no idea what was going to come. So Linda described Robert Cooper, based off the glimpse that she got, as a middle-aged man with dark hair who was very well dressed. She also noted that he walked with a limp and used a cane. On Saturday, May 22nd, Linda was scheduled for a flight home to visit her family, and she was going to be gone for several days. Al drove her to the airport, and it was actually on this drive that they decided to make their relationship official. They had that awkward conversation where it's like, okay, when I see my family, am I supposed to call you my boyfriend? And of course, they said yes, and she boarded her flight in a very good mood. So the morning that Al took Linda to the airport, he told her to call him when her flight landed just so he would know that everything went well. And Linda said that he also made mention of helping Robert Cooper move in one of those big sofa chairs. And again, this was the basement unit, so it was downstairs. So it was a bit harder to move in furniture than if there weren't any stairs at all. And he said that that's basically what he was going to be doing that day, is just various stuff around the house. Linda landed and called her new boyfriend at 3:30 p.m., and she noted that his demeanor was very, very different from what it was when he dropped her off. She said that Al, who normally had a very sunny personality, a happy-go-lucky person, she said that Al seemed kind of sullen, and he was also very short with her. It was basically like he was ready to hang up the phone.
You were Al's best friend.
Yep. We were buddies.
Before Al was killed, in the month or two leading up to that date, did you spend much time with him?
But yeah, we spent a lot of time together. We on the day I think that it happened, I was doing a big remodel in Denver, and we were going to go out that night, and so we called it quits about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He went home. We both went home to clean up, and we were supposed to meet, and then never heard from him again.
You split from Al. He goes home, and you go your way.
Yeah, we were going to go clean up. I think he was going to go meet his roommate, who we think the murderer was. We were going to meet up later that night.
And you never saw this prospective renter?
I did not, no.
So Linda would be gone on vacation for a whole week, and Al didn't have any family in the area. And unfortunately, I think that his new roommate knew this. I think it's totally normal to move into a new place and to ask the person if they're from the area or if they have family in the area. And I think that Robert Cooper, knowing this, knew that he would have more time with Al. On Monday, May 24th, Al did not show up to work, and he was normally a good employee, so this is when the alarm bells were raised. His job called his emergency contact, who was his sister. She decided to contact the police, who went to Al's place to do a wellness check. The police doing this welfare check walked into a horrific and bloody scene. After Al didn't answer the door, they just walked into the apartment and they found Al in the basement. Responding officers found the 53-year-old lying face down in a pool of blood, and there was blood spatter all over the walls. The coroner noted a wound on the back of Al's head, which they think happened while he was walking down the basement stairs. Whoever was behind him hit him over the head to knock him out. But unfortunately, this blow did not kill Al. Instead, he was hogtied and mercilessly tortured for hours. So his wrists were tied behind his back, and then his ankles were tied to his wrists. He had been stabbed and slashed, and a lot of injury was done to the bottoms of his feet. Disgustingly, knives from his own kitchen had been inserted into his ear canals, as well as above his eyes. I don't know if that means that they were into the skull. I don't think that they were. It's like the person had damaged his eyes and his ears almost so that Al wouldn't know when they were coming. Like, those are like your two senses that you need the most. So it feels like they would have done that to kind of make him even more incapacitated. Like, he would have no idea what's going on outside the room with these injuries. He had also been whipped. They didn't ever list a weapon that he was whipped with, so I don't know if it was a belt or like a specific whip. And he had also been slashed and stabbed so many times in his neck that he was almost decapitated. Overall, there were 22 total stab wounds, and he died from blood loss. And the coroner said that when he died, it likely felt like a blessing. And it doesn't end there, because after Al had been killed, the killer then proceeded to eat food from his own kitchen, shower in Al's bathroom, sleep in Al's bed, and even wear Al's clothes. The house had been seemingly wiped down for fingerprints, and there was also bleach poured down the shower drain, so that would eliminate any DNA there. The kitchen sink had been plugged and it had been filled with bleach, and sitting in this bleach was anywhere from 6 to 12 knives, as well as Al's keys, a number of random household items like a drinking glass, a pen, and then a dish scrubber, which I'm assuming are all things that the killer touched, because then the sitting in the bleach, it would destroy the DNA. It's really scary how meticulous this killer was to ensure that they wouldn't leave any evidence behind. It seems like every single thing that they touched was either wiped down or soaked in bleach. But the police luckily were very, very thorough, and they did find a single drop of blood on the basement stairs that did not belong to Al. The police collected this blood sample and ran it against CODIS, and it didn't come up with anything. So basically, it means that whoever's blood this was, they'd never been arrested for a crime, which, given how evil they are, that's very, very scary. Al's GMC pickup truck, wallet, and cell phone were also missing. Police suspected that the killer used Al's truck as the getaway car and left these items in the truck, and that's actually exactly what he did. Later that day, they found surveillance footage from a Wells Fargo ATM. Al's pickup truck had pulled up to the ATM. The person driving this pickup truck was wearing a ski mask, so all you can see is the eyes and then like part of the bridge of the nose, basically. They look evil, though. This person used Al's bank card at the Wells Fargo ATM to log in and withdraw $1,000 from his account. Al's truck was found sitting in the parking lot of this Wells Fargo, and investigators looked inside, and the ATM receipt was sitting on the driver's seat, almost like this person knew that they would find it. So who could do something this evil? Investigators found the lease in the trash can and saw Robert Cooper's name, and I think it's pretty obvious that whoever this Robert Cooper was did this crime. Investigators looked at the lease and fact-checked the information, and they found that this Robert Cooper was a completely made-up person. There was no one named Robert Cooper at the Wells Fargo that had been transferred to their Colorado branches. And then the previous address that he listed, which was supposed to be his sister's, was an elementary school in Denver. The social security number that he had put on the application belonged to a random lady in Indiana. The phone that Robert Cooper had been using to communicate with Al about the apartment was one of those cheap burner phones bought from a 7-Eleven near the University of Colorado Medical School campus. And one of the creepiest details is that this 7-Eleven deleted their security footage every 30 days. And Robert Cooper had waited 31 days to turn on the cell phone and start using it. The amount of planning that went into this is just so creepy. Like, how would he know that the 7-Eleven deleted their security footage every 30 days? Like, did he work at the 7-Eleven? Did he, for some reason, ask the employees that? I feel like that's a really weird question for a customer to ask. Maybe he just like had his knowledge of security systems and like how long footage usually lasts, because it's pretty common, I guess, for security footage to be deleted every 30 days. Since Robert Cooper was an alias, police looked into anyone who may have interacted with him prior to the murder. And they found that Robert Cooper had toured several vacant properties in the Aurora area. And it seems like he wasn't shopping for an apartment, he was shopping for a victim. A University of Colorado professor was one of these people who gave Al a tour of her empty unit, and she said that he spoke with a slight Romanian accent. Again, Linda didn't speak to him, so she can't confirm this, but this professor was a teacher of either like the Romanian language or like Romanian studies, so she's definitely the kind of person who would know, and she said that this accent was Romanian. So, several landlords said that Robert Cooper had made them feel uneasy during their tour. One woman even said that he made the hair on the back of her neck stand up straight. Many of these properties were advertised at the University of Colorado Medical Center, just like Al's had been. That, combined with the fact that the cell phone was from a 7-Eleven near this same campus, makes me feel like maybe Robert Cooper spent a lot of time there, potentially even being like a student or a professor, or I mean, college campuses are open to anybody, so maybe he just frequented that area. So when Robert was touring Al's unit, it seems like he was all business because a male neighbor said that he saw Robert Cooper in the yard walking to his car, and he waved, but he just ignored him. Another woman said that she encountered Robert Cooper, the person who matched the description, so we can assume that it's Robert Cooper. This woman said that she was walking on a hiking trail really, really close to Al's apartment, and she came across this man. She said that he also made her uncomfortable. He just like stared her down, and notably, he did not have a limp or use a cane. Police actually theorized that this man used a cane to get Al to lower his guard. So, something that Al's family has said is that he wouldn't like hold off on giving this man his ATM PIN number. Like he would have just like given it to him, you know, if he could sense that he was in danger. Like all of this torture wasn't to pull his bank information from him. Instead, it seems like this was a thrill killing. Whoever did this because it was fun, because they liked enacting this sick fantasy, this disgusting torture on another person. The FBI also got involved with this investigation, and they were the ones who were able to run the blood for ancestral DNA. So they found that this man was from the Balkan region, which checks out with what the professor said with the Romanian accent. And the analysis showed that he had brown eyes, dark hair, Southeastern European ancestry, and the FBI also believes that he was between 40 and 50 years old, so just a couple years younger than his victim. They also say he stood around 5'10" and weighed 175 pounds at the time of the killing. There's really not much information on who this killer could be because they covered their tracks so well, but something investigators noticed was the odd way in which Al was tied up. Hog tying can be used as a torture tactic because it's a stress position, meaning that it's extremely uncomfortable on the body. And an organization that's known to use hog tying is called the Turkish Hezbollah. And there's really not too much information online about them. Probably not a lot of information in English, and they are known for using stress positions as well as foot whipping. And remember, there were injuries done to the bottoms of Al's feet. But again, I also want to point out that a lot of the times when somebody is being held captive, the captor will damage the bottom of their feet so that it hurts to walk, and therefore they're less likely to try to run away. So in present day, the FBI is working on building a family tree based off the small amount of DNA that was found at the scene. So let's go into some theories about why this might have happened. So people online think that this could be related to Al's job because he did work in engineering and he worked on some pretty high-level projects. He worked at the nuclear plant, he worked for the San Francisco airport, he worked on their transit system. People think that maybe he was being tortured so that he would give away secrets, but again, Al was a timekeeper. I don't think that timekeepers are privy to top secret information. It's not like he worked at the SVP level and would know really valuable information like that. And I mean, I think the scariest theory, and the one that's the most likely, is that there was no reason for this attack. It was just somebody who wanted to commit an act of torture and murder. So now I'm going to talk about another possible victim of Robert Cooper, and this is a man named Jim Duckett, who was also tortured and killed, but this was in 2008 in Shelbyville, Kentucky. There are a lot of similarities to Al's case in the way that Jim was like beaten for hours. I believe this also happened in Jim's own house because his puppy was there and his puppy was locked in another room. Jim was also killed by having his throat slit. After the murder, the killer took Jim's ATM card and again drained his bank account. Jim's truck was also found parked in the parking lot with the keys sitting on the front seat. So Jim Duckett was a decorated Army veteran, and he had served in Desert Storm. He had also worked in Germany as a police investigator for a while. So again, there's like potential ties back to his career, but I don't know if Al and Jim's jobs would have ever intersected at any point. So, according to Jim's sister, his house had been burglarized prior to his death. This was like several months prior. And he had expressed that he felt kind of uncomfortable in his house after this, which is completely understandable. But in the month leading up to his death, his sister noticed that his behavior had changed and he seemed kind of off, but she wasn't really sure why. The fact that he was killed and then his bank account was drained makes her feel like whoever did this was the same person that burglarized his apartment. This ATM had a security camera, and the person that was withdrawing money wore a mask. So again, we don't know what they look like. And I would love to compare the image of Jim's killer to the image of Al's killer. Because, you know, maybe they're the same person, but we can't tell because they're wearing a mask. People also say that this seems like the work of Israel Keys. If you don't know who that is, he's a serial killer that was in operation for a really long time, and it's hard to know how many people he killed. And he ended up being arrested in Alaska, I believe, because he had kidnapped a drive-through employee, and then he had like held her for several days. I think he like exploited her family for money, and then he ended up killing her. When he got arrested, he admitted to the murders and he like talked about them at length. People think that Robert Cooper's ATM photo looks like Israel Keys. The killer's blood was left at the scene and it didn't come up with any matches in the system. And because Israel Keys was arrested, then you'd think that it would come up and that it would be a match. So I think that whoever did this to Al had never been arrested before, and that's really scary because it means that they're still out on the street. This is why I like to cover unsolved cases, because I think it's really important to spread awareness for these things. And then also like just the fact that whoever did this is out is just so scary. Like they could be behind you in the grocery store. They could be sitting next to you in traffic. These are people that are out living their lives. Like they're watching the same TV shows as we are. They're hearing about the same political events happening on the news. Like this person is out there living their life after having horrifically ended someone else's. And in Al's case, it seems like they did it literally just for fun. Let me know any theories you guys might have in the comments on who could have done this to Al Kite. I really appreciate you watching my video. If you liked it, let me know by following my account. I really appreciate any support that you guys give me. I know that I upload a lot more on TikTok than I do on YouTube, but I'm hoping that in my new apartment, I can be a lot more consistent with my uploading schedule. Let me know what you guys think happened in the comments. Like, do you think that Robert Cooper had killed before? Do you think that he went to the University of Colorado? Let me know what you guys think about this case and follow my account if you like true crime. Until next video, I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day and stay safe. Bye.